They laughed before she even started. A few of the junior investors tried to hide it behind polite smiles, but the snickering wasn't subtle. One man leaned toward another and whispered something about her outfit. Plain black slacks, a modest cream blouse, no designer heels, no fancy accessories. Just a worn leather notebook and a calm presence that didn't match the high-energy desperation they were used to seeing at pitch meetings. She looked out of place in the chrome glass conference room lined with screens, startup buzzwords floating on slides behind her. Everyone else in the room was dressed to impress. Sharp suits, luxury watches, shiny presentations loaded onto tablets. She didn't even bring a laptop, and that's why they thought she didn't belong. Her name was Maya. She didn't come with a marketing team. She didn't drop buzzwords like disruption or scaling verticals. She didn't apologize for being there, but she didn't demand the room either. She just stood at the front with her notebook and waited for the room to quiet down. Except it never really did. One of the panelists, an older man with a sharp jawline and too much cologne, finally said what everyone else was thinking. "Miss, is this your first time pitching? Because this platform isn't really beginner-friendly." Another chuckled. "Maybe we should loop in the admin to help her with the slides." Maya didn't flinch. She gave a small smile and calmly said, "Actually, I'm not here for practice. I'm here because I believe the tech we've built can change how you see your own data." That earned her a few eye rolls. They didn't care about her data. They'd already decided who she was. What they didn't know, what none of them even suspected, was that this quiet woman with the notebook wasn't just another hopeful founder. She was the name behind the name. And soon they were going to learn exactly whose company they had just dismissed. Maya flipped open her notebook and began explaining the platform, its core functionality, its capability to detect behavioral data anomalies in real time, and how it could revolutionize the way companies understood customer feedback without relying on third-party trackers. But her voice, though clear, was met with glazed expressions. The panel wasn't listening. One of the younger VCs checked his phone under the table. Another whispered to his colleague, "Sounds like a college project." A woman in a tailored blazer raised her hand mid-sentence and interrupted. "I'm sorry, but do you have any user data, case studies, a beta test report at least?" Maya nodded. "Yes, we've been running quietly with 3 pilot clients in Europe." "Any well-known names?" Another judge interrupted. "Not public yet," Maya replied. That was all they needed to dismiss her. The senior partner closed his tablet and said, "Look, this space is overcrowded. We've seen a dozen startups promising the same thing. You might want to refine your model, come back with a stronger deck, and maybe a co-founder with more—" He paused, scanning her. "Technical presence." That last part stung. It wasn't about her product, it was about her. Maya didn't argue. She simply closed her notebook, thanked them for their time, and walked out of the room, heels clicking softly on the polished tile. The door closed behind her with a quiet finality. Inside, the panel chuckled and resumed chatting. "What was that company called again?" someone asked. The assistant read off her pitch card. "It just says, Nexora Technologies." The room went still for a beat. One of the investors tilted his head. "Wait, Nexora? Isn't that the startup that Forbes just called the next big thing in predictive analytics?" The assistant nodded. "Yeah, I think their last round was Series B, raised something like 50 million. Another panelist turned pale. "She said they were still in beta." The senior partner frowned. "She never said they, she said we." And at that exact moment, the elevator doors outside the conference room opened again. A man in a dark suit walked out, tall, composed, his face unmistakable. The co-founder of Nexora, also known as the angel investor they had been trying to meet for over a year. Maya's husband. The room tensed instantly. Several of the panelists sat up straighter, scrambling to reopen their tablets and recheck their notes. Whispers passed quickly like sparks across dry leaves. "Is that him? Why is he here? Did we just—" The man walked with quiet purpose, his eyes scanning the table, then landing on the senior partner who had so confidently dismissed Maya. His voice was calm, almost casual. "I heard there was a pitch for Nexora today," he said, "and I happened to be nearby. Thought I'd drop in." The tension in the room shifted. Everyone stood to greet him, hands extended, fake smiles plastered on their faces. Of course, we didn't realize you were involved in this round," one of them said quickly. He gave a tight-lipped smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'm not. She is." Confused glances. "She?" one man asked, still holding out his hand. The co-founder turned and gestured toward the hallway, just as Maya stepped back into the room. She hadn't gone far. She knew how this would play out. She walked in calmly, notebook still in hand, expression unchanged. "She's not just the lead designer of Nexora's architecture," her husband continued. "She's also the majority shareholder, the acting CEO, and the one responsible for the company's largest IP breakthrough to date." Maya stopped beside him, her posture quiet but unwavering. The senior partner swallowed hard. "We may have misunderstood the scope of her presentation." "No," Maya replied gently, "you misunderstood me." And in that moment, the energy in the room flipped. The panel that had once dismissed her was now scrambling to recover. One of them gestured at the open chairs. "Perhaps we could go through the pitch again?" Maya raised an eyebrow. "Actually," she said, her voice still soft but firm, "I think you've already heard what you needed to, and so have I." Then she turned to leave. And this time it wasn't the soft click of quiet footsteps trailing behind her. It was the sound of power leaving the room. Word of what happened in that boardroom spread faster than anyone expected. By the end of the day, emails began flooding Nexora's inbox from the same firms that had once dismissed her. Requests for meetings, apologies wrapped in flattery, promises of strategic alignment and newfound respect for her vision. But Maya didn't respond. She didn't need to. That moment had already done what no amount of branding, no media campaign, no corporate press release ever could. It exposed the rot in the system, how innovation was often ignored when it didn't come dressed in expectations, and how brilliance, when wrapped in simplicity, was often mistaken for weakness. The next morning, a leaked blog post went viral. It had been written anonymously but carried the unmistakable tone of someone inside that boardroom. The title, "We laughed her out. Turns out she runs the room." Social media exploded. Startups, founders, especially women in tech, shared the story with hashtags like "She owns it," "Silent CEO," and "Listen before you judge." Maya's quiet confidence became a symbol, not because she demanded the spotlight, but because she proved you don't need to shout to lead. Meanwhile, inside Nexora's headquarters, Maya sat with her small, loyal team. No one asked her about the incident. They all knew. They had built Nexora together from scratch. Late nights fueled by takeout, code scribbled on windows, bugs that wouldn't die. They had seen her brilliance when the world hadn't. And Maya? She returned to work like nothing happened. She pulled up a dashboard, reviewed the latest anomaly reports, and scheduled a product review for Friday. Because for her, the mission had never been about proving anything. It had always been about building something that mattered. The rest of the world was just catching up. A week later, Maya was invited to speak at a prestigious tech summit, the same one that had declined her application just a year ago, citing insufficient visibility. This time, they begged her to appear as the keynote speaker. They offered VIP accommodations, prime speaking slots, and guaranteed press coverage. She declined the first few requests. When she finally accepted, it wasn't out of spite or pride. It was strategic. The day of the summit, the main hall overflowed with guests. Tech journalists filled the front row. Founders whispered to each other about the woman who fooled the venture world. Big-name investors leaned forward in their seats, desperate to be part of whatever she would say next. When Maya took the stage, she wore the same black slacks and cream blouse she had worn at the pitch. No glam squad, no designer dress, just her. The crowd went dead silent. She didn't start with charts. She didn't show metrics. She didn't drop company jargon. Instead, she told a story, not about her product, but about a meeting. She described the moment when eyes glazed over, when she was interrupted mid-sentence, when the room had decided she was invisible. "But the thing is," she said quietly, "I wasn't there to impress them. I was there because I had already built something that mattered, and they just didn't know how to see it." There was no bitterness in her voice, no anger, just clarity. "I wasn't underestimated because my product was weak. I was underestimated because I didn't fit their template of power. And I won't change that to fit in. I'll let the template break instead." The hall stood silent. Then, thunderous applause erupted. Not polite, not curated, real, long, emotional. People were wiping away tears. Not because she told them what they wanted to hear, but because she spoke what they had always felt but never had the voice to say. In that moment, Maya didn't just reclaim her space, she redefined it. Maya left the summit quietly, just as she had arrived, without an entourage, without stopping for interviews, and without posting a single selfie or behind-the-scenes reel. The cameras tried to follow her, the press begged for a quote, but she kept walking, because her story was never meant to be consumed like gossip. It was meant to ripple, and ripple it did. Across the tech world, boardrooms began rethinking how they listened. Startups rewrote their pitch guidelines to remove the unspoken biases baked into every question. Investors began attending pitches not to evaluate dominance or polish, but to listen, truly listen, to ideas. More importantly, a quiet revolution sparked across social platforms. Women began sharing their own Maya moments, not just in tech, in hospitals, law firms, universities, retail counters, and classrooms. They spoke of being dismissed, laughed at, overlooked, until the truth of their worth couldn't be ignored any longer. Back at Nexora, Maya was sitting in a sunlit corner of the office, sketching out new designs on her tablet. She didn't want to expand too fast. She didn't want to chase the media noise. She just wanted to protect the culture her team had built, one of calm brilliance, quiet confidence, and unapologetic purpose. One afternoon, a young intern nervously approached her and asked, "How did you stay so calm in that room? When they laughed, when they interrupted?" Maya looked up, thoughtful, then smiled gently. "Because I knew something they didn't," she said. "I wasn't in that room for their approval. I was in that room because I already knew who I was." The intern blinked, speechless, and just like that, Maya turned back to her sketches, humming softly, her presence grounded not in proving herself to the world, but in knowing she no longer had to. And the world? It would keep trying to catch up.